Hello, and welcome to the new and improved INET newsroom. Duffman and I are sitting here waiting to welcome in the new year.
But while we wait, let's take a look at some of the top news stories of 2007.
Alright, let's dive right into the news then. It was in January that Meher Arar, the Canadian citizen who was deported to Syria and reportedly tortured, was granted a formal apology on behalf of the Canadian government. Mr. Arar was also granted $10 million as compensation for the troubles that he went through in Syria. Mr. Arar remains on the so-called U.S. no-fly list. However, he has full rights to mobility in Canada. In April, 33 people were killed at a massacre at Virginia Tech University. Cho Seung-hui, a student at the school, killed 32 of his classmates in a shooting rampage before turning the gun on himself. Mr. Hui released a videotape to NBC News the day before he went on the shooting rampage. A 3-year-old British girl, Madeleine McCann, went missing from a Portuguese resort in May. Madeleine McCann's parents remain suspects in the investigation to this very day. In July, a story that INET first reported to you came to a conclusion. A 13-year-old Medicine Hat girl accused of killing her entire family in cold blood was found guilty of murder in the first degree. The 13-year-old, who cannot be identified under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, blamed her 23-year-old boyfriend, Jeremy Steinke, for the killings.
Also, in July, the 7th and final Harry Potter book was released amidst much excitement and secrecy. Contrary to popular rumors, Harry Potter did not die.
It was in September that the Canadian dollar finally closed above parity with the US greenback. This was the first time in over 30 years that the Canadian dollar had been quite this high. In October, police at Vancouver International Airport tasered Robert Dekansky, a Polish immigrant. Mr. Dekansky later died of his injuries. It was this event that named the RCMP Newsmaker of the Year in Canada. In November, Pakistani President Pervez Musharraf imposed an emergency rule that would last several weeks. The rule ended when Pervez Musharraf negotiated with opposition leader Benazir Bhutto, and he stepped down as leader of the armed forces. Benazir Bhutto was later assassinated in late December, just a few days ago. Also in December, the Robert Pickton murder trial came to an end. Mr. Pickton was charged with the murders of 6 women, and he was found guilty on all 6 counts of second-degree murder. A few weeks later, the judge in the Robert Pickton case sentenced Mr. Pickton to life imprisonment with no chance of parole for 25 years. Now, 2007 was a big year for technology news, the top story of which was Apple's release of their new iPhone. This amazing gadget has mapping software and an iPod application as well as a web browser. It also works as a phone, too. In true elitist fashion, Apple tried to make the telephone only compatible with AT&T's network. However, this was not enough to stop 17-year-old hacker George Hotz from cracking the iPhone so that it would run on T-Mobile's network. Looks like Apple's plans to dominate the cell phone industry were short-lived. In 2007, Apple released the latest version of its operating system, Leopard. This Unix-based system is the 6th major release of Mac OS X, and it boasts over 300 new features and is described as being the most intuitive OS X yet.
And now, not to be outdone by Macintosh, Microsoft released its new operating system, Vista. Now, this operating system has been criticized by computer users around the world. But, for a basic computer user, it's a very nice OS. Vista boasts improved graphics and a completely redesigned user interface. And now that we've heard of the new Macintosh OS and the new Windows OS, what about the new Linux distro that came out this year? Ubuntu 7.10. This distro is being called a Vista that works. With great graphics and a program called Barrel, basically a Windows manager, it allows you to put multiple desktops on a rotating cube.
Well, that's a look at what made news in 2007.
And remember to get out and enjoy 2008. But don't forget to watch INET in the new year.